I've never been one for luxury, never longed for a grand house or a fine dress, though I suppose I'd have liked one. No, I spent my life working the land, raising my daughter, Darina. My hands have seen their fair share of work, calloused, weathered by the years, but my heart, it still holds warmth, always ready to give, for her, always for her. From the moment Darina was born, I knew my life was no longer mine. Every piece of it, every drop of energy, I gave to her. I worked hard, always thinking of her future, a future I had hoped would be brighter, better than mine. There were days when I could hardly stand up, when my back would ache so badly that I could barely make it through the day. But I kept going because I had to. For her, she was everything, and for a long time I was enough for her. But as the years went by, something changed. Darina grew older, and slowly she began to slip away from me. She moved to the city, got herself a job, and made a life I couldn't be a part of. I watched her from afar, proud of everything she had accomplished, but I felt invisible. And then came the day I'd been waiting for, the day Darina was going to get married. She had always dreamed of a grand wedding, something perfect. I had always dreamed of that for her too, though I never dared hope I'd be able to give it to her. But now I had the chance. She called me one afternoon, and when I heard her voice, I knew she was excited, but there was something else in her tone too. A little distance, perhaps? She told me about the wedding plans, how the venue was perfect, but they just couldn't afford it on their own. She needed my help. She needed me to make this dream come true. I could hear the unspoken words. It wasn't just about a wedding, it was about impressing them, Julian's parents, the rich ones, the ones with money and status. I understood what she was really asking, and I knew that I had to do this for her, for them. I sold my wedding ring. That was the hardest part. I still remember Alexei's face when he gave it to me, the way he looked at me like I was the most precious thing in the world. Selling it felt like selling a piece of my soul, but I didn't hesitate. I knew it was for her, and so I sold it, along with the other pieces of jewelry I'd saved over the years. Every penny I had, I gave to make sure the wedding would be perfect for her. I booked the venue, Stanton Grand Manor. It was a place I could never have dreamed of going, let alone paying for. But Darina deserved it. She deserved to be a princess on her wedding day. I didn't think twice. I didn't stop to ask if maybe, just maybe, there was another way. There wasn't. There couldn't be. As the day grew closer, I could feel myself shrinking, bit by bit. The more I gave, the less I seemed to have for myself. Every moment, every penny was for Darina. I sold things that meant the world to me, even things Alexei had left behind. His gold cufflinks, the watch he wore every day. These were my last ties to him, but I couldn't keep them. Not when it came to her happiness, not when it came to her perfect day. I even let myself believe that when the day arrived, when she walked down that aisle in her perfect dress, she would look at me and see everything I had given up for her. She would feel it, she would know, and in that moment I would feel whole again. I dreamed of that moment every night, and during the day, I focused on nothing but making sure everything went perfectly. I didn't notice the little twinge of worry creeping into my chest. I didn't allow myself to ask if this would all be worth it. I was her mother. This was my duty, and no matter the cost, I would do it. The day of the wedding was supposed to be the culmination of all the years of sacrifice. It was supposed to be a celebration of everything I had worked for. I would sit in the front row, proud. I would smile and everything would be perfect. But as the day drew near, a cold feeling began to settle in my stomach. Could it be that I had given all this, all of myself, for a dream that wasn't mine? Could it be that despite everything I had done, I would remain invisible to her? I didn't know. But one thing was certain. I was going to make this wedding the best it could be. For her. Always for her. I had pictured it all in my mind. The day my daughter would get married. The culmination of everything I had worked for, all my sacrifices. I imagined sitting in the front row, so proud, so sure that my love and my devotion had finally brought us to this moment. This was my victory too, my gift to Darina. I had given everything, and today it would all be worth it. But when I arrived at the venue, my heart sank. The moment I stepped through the doors, I knew something was wrong. The marble floors, the grand chandeliers, the perfect tables draped in white. Everything looked just as I had imagined. The guests were laughing, the music playing, but there was something in the air that made my skin crawl. A young woman in a sharp black suit greeted me at the door with a practiced smile. "Mrs. Leora, we'll have you seated in just a moment. Please wait in the guest room until everything is ready." I nodded, trying to keep my nerves at bay. I thought it was just a formality, a part of the protocol, but something about the way she said it felt off. I followed her through the hall, past the grand ballroom where the laughter and clinking glasses echoed. But instead of stopping at the front row where I belonged, she led me to the back. The room was nothing like I had imagined. It wasn't a seat of honor. It wasn't the front row at all. It was a small, cramped corner next to the kitchen doors. A cold, unforgiving spot. The table was nothing but a tiny thing, set at the edge of the room. It felt like I had been thrown away, discarded like something unwanted. I couldn't believe my eyes. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. This wasn't how Darina had promised it would be. I stood there, rooted to the spot, staring at the empty chair and the discarded plates piling up in the corner. My heart thudded painfully in my chest. It wasn't just a seat, it was my dignity. I turned to the staff, hoping this was some mistake. "Excuse me, there seems to be some misunderstanding. I'm the mother of the bride," I said, my voice shaking. But before anyone could respond, Darina appeared. Her face was tight, her expression cold. The woman I had given my life to was standing there before me, no warmth in her eyes, no recognition. She barely glanced at me as she said, "Mom, please don't make a scene. There's no room for you at the front. This is the only place we have." I froze. The words hit me like a slap across my face. I stared at her, my own flesh and blood, and felt as if the ground had been pulled out from under me. She was embarrassed by me. I was a burden to her now. I fought back the tears, my throat burned with rage, but I couldn't let her see it. I couldn't show her the depth of the pain she had caused me. I locked eyes with her, steady despite the storm raging inside me. "You will pay for this, Darina. I will remember this," I said, my voice calm, though my heart was shattered. Her eyes flickered, but she didn't flinch. Without waiting for a response, I turned and walked away, leaving her behind. My heart ached with every step I took. I had sacrificed everything for her, and this was how she repaid me, left to sit in the corner with the kitchen staff. This wasn't just a betrayal. This was a rejection of everything I had done for her. But I wasn't done. I wasn't going to let her take away my dignity, not without a fight. As I walked through the corridor, still numb from the shock, I saw him, a young man carrying trays of empty plates, the faint smell of food hanging in the air. He looked at me, his eyes softening, as he noticed the pain I was trying so hard to hide. He stepped forward, offering me a glass of water. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly, his voice full of something that I hadn't heard in a long time. Sympathy. A simple act, but it struck me like a lightning bolt. For the first time in hours, I felt seen. I took the water from him, my hands trembling slightly. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice almost breaking. I didn't expect this kindness. Not here, not now. But it was enough. In that small moment, I wasn't invisible. I wasn't trash. I was a woman, and I had worth. As the young man walked away, I stood there, still holding the glass in my hand, feeling the weight of everything that had happened. And then something shifted inside me. It wasn't just pain anymore. It was something else. Something darker, something colder. Anger. I had been humiliated, betrayed, but I wasn't going to let it end like this. Not today. I straightened up, my resolve hardening. This wasn't over. And if I had to make sure Darina understood just how deeply she had wounded me, I would. She had taken everything from me, but I still had my power. I would remind her who I was. I left the wedding banquet with a heart full of bitterness, but I wasn't done. The night had been a display of everything I'd sacrificed for Darina, and in return, I was treated as nothing more than a shadow, hidden in a corner by the trash. I wasn't going to let that stand. I wasn't going to let my love be discarded like that. If I couldn't be honored today, I would make sure they remembered me. I went straight to my hotel room, my hands shaking, but my mind clear. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was done being a victim. The first thing I did was pick up the phone and call Victoria Rudenko, my lawyer. She was a woman of strength and resolve, the kind of person who could help me make this right. Victoria answered quickly. When I explained everything, she didn't hesitate. She told me exactly what I needed to do. File a lawsuit. Not just for the pain they caused me, but for the betrayal, the disregard for everything I had done for my daughter. We'd sue for emotional distress, for the humiliation. It wasn't just about money. It was about dignity. We worked fast. Victoria prepared the paperwork for a formal claim, a massive sum, including all the money I had spent on the wedding. This wasn't just about getting my money back. This was about making a statement. Darina needed to understand that she couldn't treat me like this without consequences. While the legal wheels were turning, I wasn't finished. I had something else planned. I had a weapon. The photos. The ones taken that day, where I sat in the corner, ignored and abandoned. I contacted the local media, asking if they'd be interested in the story of a mother who had been treated like trash at her daughter's wedding. Within hours, I received a call. They were interested. They wanted to interview me. The truth would come out. As the journalist came to my hotel for the interview, I felt the weight of it all. This wasn't just a personal vendetta. This was about showing the world what had really happened. They had taken everything from me, and now it was my turn to speak. I sat in front of the camera, my heart still heavy, but my voice steady. I told them about the years of sacrifice, how I had worked my fingers to the bone for my daughter, only to be discarded when it mattered most. I spoke of the wedding, of how I had been hidden away like a secret that no one wanted to face. I told the world what they had done to me, how they had used my love for their own benefit and then shoved me aside. The article hit the news within hours. It spread like wildfire. People began commenting on social media, sharing their outrage and sympathy for me. They couldn't believe what Darina had done. They couldn't believe a mother who had given everything was treated this way. But that wasn't enough. I wasn't finished yet. I had one last move to make. I reached out to the banks, the ones where Darina had accounts. I sent them the necessary documents, instructing them to freeze her assets until the legal matter was resolved. It was a simple thing to do, but it sent a powerful message. Every move I made was deliberate, methodical. I wasn't just reacting, I was taking control of the narrative. Darina had thought she could push me aside, erase me from the story, but she hadn't counted on me fighting back. I sat in my hotel room, scrolling through the latest updates on my phone. The news was all over the city now. People were talking about our story, about how Darina had betrayed her own mother for status, for appearances. The weight of it all settled on me, but so did something else, a quiet satisfaction. I had taken control. I had turned the tables. And now Darina would have to face the consequences of her actions. She would learn the hard way that you can't just use people and toss them aside when you're done. This was just the beginning. I wasn't going to stop until she understood what it meant to betray me. The storm of my revenge had been gathering force, and now it was beginning to unravel everything. After my public statement and filing the lawsuit, Darina's phone had been ringing nonstop. Calls from friends, acquaintances, colleagues. Everyone wanted to know what had happened. Why was the mother of the bride seated in the worst part of the restaurant, hidden among the trash, instead of at the honored seat at her own daughter's wedding? With every call, I could feel Darina's world cracking. At first, she tried to brush it off, insisting it was all just a misunderstanding, that I didn't understand the situation. But as the hours passed, the cracks became undeniable. Her reputation, the life she had worked so hard to build, was crumbling, and everyone around her kept asking, "How could you do this to your mother?" The next day, before any legal actions were taken further, Darina decided to come to me. She couldn't hide from the storm anymore. The anger, the shame, the guilt, it all needed to be taken out on someone. And of course, it wasn't going to be on her. She came, determined to put all the blame on me. I heard her before I saw her. The door slammed open, and in she walked, a whirlwind of fury. Her eyes were burning with rage, her voice laced with pain. But there were no apologies, no remorse. Instead, she came for me, the person she thought was the cause of all her troubles. "You've completely lost it, haven't you?" she screamed. Her voice cracked with anger, and her hand shook. "You've ruined everything, my wedding, everything I've built." Her words were raw, cutting deep. "You made this hellish scandal just to show everyone how important you are." I raised my eyes slowly, my face calm as I spoke, a small, steady smile forming on my lips. "You want to blame me? You, my dear, destroyed yourself. You decided I was your property, not a person. You chose to push me away, to disregard my sacrifices and my love. And now, when it all comes crashing down, you want to point the finger at me?" Her face twisted in disbelief. "Don't start," she snapped, her voice breaking as tears welled up in her eyes. She couldn't face the truth. "Do you even understand what you've done? You've ruined my life. You've destroyed my reputation, my family, my career." She stood before me, still convinced that it was me who was responsible for the disaster. She couldn't see, or maybe she wouldn't admit, that everything she had done, every decision she had made, led to this moment. I listened quietly, not defending myself, not crying, just watching her with steady eyes. This was my moment, the moment I would make it clear who was really at fault here. "I ruined your life?" I asked softly, standing up slowly, walking toward her. "No, Darina, you did that. You chose this path. You chose to ignore me, to reject my sacrifices, my love. You were willing to deceive me, all for the sake of your own ambition. You forgot who you were and what I gave you." I looked her in the eyes, my voice unwavering. "You got what you wanted. Now you'll face the consequences." Her anger flared, but she couldn't bring herself to admit the truth. She couldn't face the fact that she was the architect of her own downfall. Her heart pounded in her chest, her fists clenched. "I don't care," she shouted, her face flushed with fury. "I'm done listening to you. You ruined everything, and I won't let you tell me what to do anymore." With a final, explosive breath, she turned and stormed out of the room, her words echoing in my ears. "I'll never forgive you for this." The door slammed shut behind her, leaving me in silence. But there were no tears on my face, no sign of weakness. I was calm. It was over. Darina had made her choice. She had chosen her path, and now she had to live with it. My heart didn't break anymore. I had nothing left to give her. I had given everything. Now I had my dignity back. Darina's world was crumbling faster than she could process. The life she had so carefully constructed was now slipping through her fingers, and with every passing day, the consequences of her actions became clearer, more painful. It started with the lawsuit. Leora had made it official. She had demanded the full repayment of the money she had spent on the wedding, a sum that now seemed astronomical. The financial pressure on Darina and her husband, Yuri, was immediate. The claims were backed by concrete figures and evidence, and the sheer scale of the amount they owed hit them like a blow. This was the first real wake-up call for Darina. The life she had built at her mother's expense was now in jeopardy. The financial collapse. Darina had always assumed her luxurious lifestyle would last forever. The loans they had taken for their $1 million apartment, the cars, the extravagant wedding. It all seemed so secure, so permanent. But now, with every call from debt collectors and every letter from the bank, the reality of their situation was setting in. The debts were growing, and with Yuri's business suffering from the scandal surrounding the wedding, things were getting worse by the day. Then the worst news came. The bank had started the process of foreclosure. Their apartment, once the symbol of their success, was now under threat. Darina never imagined this could happen, that the life she had worked so hard to project, the perfect social status, could unravel so quickly. Yet, as each day passed, the signs became undeniable. Her biggest shock came when she received a letter from her lawyer. The loan she had taken for the wedding and the banquet was now her personal responsibility. There was no escaping it. She and Yuri were personally liable for the entire debt. The reality of what she had done, and what she had allowed, was beginning to hit her with full force. The beautiful wedding, the perfect social image, all of it had come at the cost of something far more important: her financial stability, her reputation, and now her future. The moment of despair. One day, as Darina tried to negotiate with the bank for an extension on her loans, She discovered that her credit score had already deteriorated so badly that no one was willing to offer her further credit. The wedding gifts, the last bit of money she had left, had been drained by legal fees. Everything was collapsing faster than she could control. Yuri, who had tried to support her through this, was himself feeling the pressure. His business was falling apart. Partners were pulling out. Clients were backing away. The bad reputation from the wedding scandal had poisoned everything. He had never expected this. They had built their life on a fragile foundation of borrowed money and social appearances, and now it was all crashing down. That evening, after yet another stressful phone call with the bank and a barrage of threats from creditors, Darina found herself standing in the middle of the apartment, feeling utterly defeated. The life she had dreamed of, filled with luxury and comfort, was slipping away. The realization hit her like a cold wave. She could no longer hide from the consequences of her choices. Finding a new path, fighting the consequences. Darina knew she couldn't keep waiting for a miracle. She couldn't sit back and let everything fall apart. She started looking for new job opportunities, exploring different ways to recover from the financial disaster she had created. Her expensive tastes, the lifestyle she had always flaunted, were now a distant memory. She had to cut back to find work that would help her restore some form of financial stability. Her reputation had been shattered, but she still had a chance to rebuild, or so she hoped. But it wasn't easy. The people she had once mingled with, those high society connections, were now avoiding her. They distanced themselves from both her and Yuri. Her reputation was tarnished beyond repair, and no one was willing to take a chance on someone with such a scandal attached to their name. She had thought her status and wealth would protect her, but now she realized it was her undoing. The debts, the lost friends, the damaged reputation, it was all too much to bear. But Darina refused to give up. She knew she had to change not just her financial situation, but her very way of thinking, her entire approach to life. The lesson had been hard, but it had been learned. She could no longer live in the illusion that everything would stay perfect forever. A month had passed since Leora began her revenge, and the world around her had been changing rapidly. Her actions were starting to show results. Darina's debts were mounting, her reputation was sinking, and Yuri's business was experiencing irreparable losses. But for Leora, this month was not just about victory. It was also about facing new trials. One morning, as Leora sat in her favorite spot in the garden, a sudden, sharp pain pierced through her head. At first, she tried to brush it off, thinking it was simply a result of exhaustion. But the pain persisted. Within minutes, she realized something was terribly wrong. She couldn't speak, and her left arm began to go numb. Fear gripped her, not for herself, but for the unfinished business she had with her daughter. She thought to herself, I can't leave this world without Darina seeing the consequences of her actions. With great effort, Leora managed to reach the phone and call for help. The paramedics arrived quickly and rushed her to the hospital. The medical report confirmed that she had suffered a stroke, and she was placed under observation. For Leora, this was a shock, but she refused to let despair take hold. Even as the doctors examined her, her thoughts were consumed with one thing. How soon could she get back home to finish what she had started with Darina? But as she lay in the hospital bed, the time for reflection had come. Here, in the quiet of her room, Leora began to reevaluate her life. All those years she had devoted to her daughter, all the sacrifices she had made for Darina's happiness, and now it had all led to betrayal and pain. She realized that her pursuit of revenge, which she had nurtured for so long, had caused more harm than relief. Reevaluation and letting go of revenge. Leora began to understand that, despite all the anger and the painful sacrifices, seeking vengeance was a mistake. Her heart no longer burned with the desire to destroy her daughter, even though Darina's actions had deeply wounded her. A month in the hospital gave Leora the time she needed to think about what truly mattered. "I've caused enough damage," she thought, as she lay in the silence where there were no whispers about debts or accusations. Leora realized that her true strength didn't lie in getting back at people for their cruel actions, but in forgiving herself and those who had wronged her. Perhaps she had spent her entire life fighting, trying to give her child the best she could. But now, lying there, she felt that letting go of her need for revenge didn't make her weak. It made her stronger. Leora realized that true freedom and strength come when you stop fighting with the past and allow yourself to move forward. After several weeks of rehabilitation, Leora returned home, but she was no longer the woman who had left for the hospital. She no longer sought revenge. Revenge was no longer her goal. Leora understood that she had already proven her strength. She had shown her ability to stand tall, even when life had been unjust. Now, what mattered to her wasn't winning, but finding peace within herself. She no longer wished to destroy Darina's life, even though the betrayal still stung. Leora decided that the time for vengeance had passed. She would not follow her anger any longer. Instead of waiting for Darina to come again to discuss debts and financial troubles, Leora decided to make the first step toward reconciliation. She wrote her daughter a letter, one that carried no harsh accusations, only a calm and thoughtful invitation to talk and understand each other. A month after her stroke, Leora began the slow process of recovery. Her doctors had given her time to heal, and though she wasn't yet able to return fully to her usual life, she started to feel something she hadn't in years: peace. The furious battles, the revenge she had plotted so meticulously, all of it seemed unnecessary now. Life had once been a whirlwind of emotions and conflict, but now Leora no longer desired to fight. She had decided to leave the past behind and search for peace in each new day. As the days passed in her small house, Leora felt her heart gradually calm. She no longer tried to control her fate, nor did she seek to understand every decision she had made. She no longer blamed herself for the mistakes, and for the first time, she felt no need to justify the years she had spent fighting for her dignity, her family. Now, all that mattered was finding peace within herself. One morning, sitting in her favorite spot in the garden, Leora's mind wandered back to her childhood. She was a young girl in a small village where each day was filled with work and quiet peace. She remembered gathering herbs for her mother, running through the meadows, the warmth of the sun on her face, and the carefree joy of those early years. Those times seemed so distant, yet so familiar. In her memories, the little girl she once was seemed to come alive again, the girl who dreamed of happiness and the world she could build for herself. And then she became a mother. Thinking of her young Darina, Leora felt warmth in her heart. When Darina was a child, Leora loved her more than anything. She gave her all her strength, her time, and her hopes, trying to make her life the best it could be. In her daughter, Leora saw all her love and dreams for the future, hoping Darina would find happiness. Over time, as Darina grew older, Leora's love remained strong, but it was no longer as unconditional as it had once been. She saw how her daughter began to change, how her feelings toward her mother grew colder, how, for the sake of social status and personal gain, Darina became indifferent to the sacrifices Leora had made. Leora could no longer turn a blind eye to it, but still she continued to love her daughter. Her heart couldn't abandon the boundless love she had for the one she had raised and put all her hopes into. But now, sitting in her garden, Leora understood that the time for fighting was long past. She no longer wanted to resurrect the pain and disappointment of the past. She decided to live quietly, no longer allowing herself to be drawn into toxic relationships, battles, or revenge. Leora found peace within her heart, realizing that not everything could be changed and that some things were better left behind. Reflections on the past. As Leora sat in her old chair in the garden, watching the midday sun warm her face, she remembered the times when she was young, dreaming of the future, when her daughter was small and her love for her was boundless. Leora no longer regretted the sacrifices she made for her life, the way she gave everything to make sure Darina was happy. She couldn't change what had happened, but she accepted that what mattered now was the peace in her soul that she had longed for all her life. Darina, unfortunately, was no longer part of that peace. Leora accepted that not everything in her life had been perfect, and that even the deepest love didn't always lead to happiness. Now, she wasn't going to insist on this connection anymore, nor try to understand why her daughter had betrayed her, why their bond had become so painful. Leora let it go. She simply wanted to live her own life, to keep the peace, and remember the best moments of when she was truly happy, when her daughter was her greatest blessing. A month had passed since my stroke, and I was beginning to feel the faint stirrings of recovery. My body, though still weak, was slowly coming back to life. The doctors had given me more time, more chances, and though I couldn't return to my former way of life just yet, I felt a new sense of calm starting to settle inside me. The battle I had waged for so long, the pursuit of revenge and justice, had lost its appeal. What once seemed necessary now seemed so distant. I no longer sought to change anything. I decided to leave the past behind me and find peace in each new day. Every day that passed in my little home, I felt my heart becoming quieter. I no longer tried to control my fate, no longer questioned the decisions I had made, nor blamed myself for the mistakes I had made. All those years of fighting for my dignity, for my family, now I saw them as part of the journey. And now all I wanted was peace. One morning, as I sat in my favorite spot in the garden, a memory began to rise within me. I was taken back to my childhood, to a time when the days were full of hard work, but also of quiet, gentle peace. I remembered gathering herbs for my mother, running through the meadows, the warmth of the sun on my face, the carefree feeling of being part of nature. Those times seemed so far away, yet at the same time so familiar and close. The little girl I once was came alive in my thoughts again. The girl who dreamed of happiness, of a world she could create on her own. And then I became a mother. I thought of my young Darina, and warmth filled my heart. When she was little, I loved her more than anything. I gave her all my strength, all my time, all my hopes, trying to make her life the best it could be. In her, I saw all of my love and my dreams, hoping she would find happiness. But over time, as Darina grew, my love for her stayed just as strong, yet it no longer felt as unconditional as it once had. I saw her change. Her feelings for me grew colder as she chased after social status and personal gain, becoming indifferent to all the sacrifices I had made for her. I couldn't close my eyes to it, but I kept loving her anyway. My heart couldn't turn off the love I felt for the child I raised, no matter how much she hurt me. Now, sitting in my garden, I understood that the time for fighting was over. I no longer wanted to revive the pain and disappointment that had been our relationship. I had decided to live peacefully, to no longer allow myself to be dragged into toxic relationships, to no longer fight or seek revenge. I had found peace in my heart, realizing that there are things that cannot be changed and some things are better left behind. Reflections on the past. As I sat in my old chair in the garden, watching the midday sun refresh my face, I thought back to those times when I was young, when I dreamed of the future, when Darina was still a little girl, and my love for her was endless. I had no regrets about the sacrifices I made, about everything I gave to her life. I couldn't change what happened, but I accepted that what mattered now was the peace within me, the peace I had longed for all my life. Darina, unfortunately, was no longer part of that peace. I had accepted that not everything in my life had been perfect, and that even the deepest love doesn't always lead to happiness. Now, I no longer intended to insist on this connection, nor did I want to understand why she betrayed me, why our bond had become so painful. I had let go of it. I just wanted to live my life, to keep my peace, and to remember the best moments when I was still happy, when my daughter was my greatest blessing,